If you're the Edmonton Oilers, let's say you start at 16, for example. Let's say that's your starting point. Connor McDavid, let's say, comes at 18, whatever. Not a bad working ground, right? The Blackhawks come in. We got fucking Connor Bedard. We're paying him $12 million. We'll give you $19 million to come to Chicago. Are you taking that? Even if Chicago's bad.
Well, they won't be bad anymore because they got Bedard and McDavid. What else do they need?
Mikko Rantanen will probably have to.
And Mitch Marner. What are we doing?
Today, ladies and gents, is February 8th, 2025. Welcome to the Checking From Behind podcast. I'm your host, Zach. There's no Preston today, but we have an old friend on, Chris. Welcome back, Chris. It's been over the summer. Yes. Dude, how does it feel? How does it feel to be back?
Feels good. Preston obviously can't make it this week. I'm happy to fill in for him. And, I do a lot of the behind-the-scenes work now.
Yes.
I give a lot of the stats, and I break a lot of the NHL news to these guys because they don't pay attention to NHL Twitter like I do.
Yes, that's pretty much true. Yeah, I post content on our Twitter account. That's basically it. I'm not on Twitter a lot. I mean, I have Instagram for that stuff. This is basically a producer. So
Twitter's like you're getting the news right there, and then Instagram, it seems to take a little while.
Mm-hmm. This dude, like me and him both have notifications on for like Elliot Friedman, and there would be times where like either he's typing in the chat or I'm typing in the chat, and we say what Elliot Friedman tweeted out, and then the other one just like goes ghost and stops typing because we were both saying the same thing. And it's mainly because like in our group chat with just me, Chris, and Preston, Preston doesn't use Twitter at all, so it's more like me and Chris are more seeing it in the Discord chat for Preston, so he stays up to date with stuff. And it's pretty much all that. And most of the talk is Sabres stuff because we're Sabres fans. If you couldn't tell by the hat.
Sadly.
Yeah, sadly, unfortunately. Let's get a little bit into some quick hitters here to start the episode off. Why don't we? So let's start with Marchenko. Last Sunday in a 5-3 loss against the Dallas Stars, he ended up taking a puck off of his jaw. He broke his jaw. He was sitting on the bench too.
It was a complete freak accident.
Yeah, mindlessly. And now he's out 6 to 8 weeks and now indefinitely.
Yeah, which sucks because he was having a career year, pretty much in every metric, humanly possibly you could measure.
I mean, he was playing outstanding. He was over a point per game, 55 points in 53 games. And he was a big part in why Columbus was playing so good, why they were part of a playoff spot and part of a playoff push. And losing Sean Monahan in the beginning of January didn't help, but they were able to stay above water because they had Marchenko, they had Zach Werenski. And I know Werenski is just day-to-day. I don't know if he played in their last game. I know when they came to Buffalo, what was it, Tuesday, I think it was? He was out of the lineup.
No, it's funny. It's like I see a tweet because Preston went to the game. I did not. And I see it says Zach Werenski's going to see how he feels after his pregame nap, but it looks like he's not going to go today. Or that might have been the next game. But I was just like, damn. Zach Werenski said, nah, I'm not playing tonight.
Yeah, and guess what? The motherfucking Sabres won.
They did.
Zach Werenski's playing. They probably don't motherfucking win.
Honestly, that game probably goes to overtime and they lose.
Yeah, I mean, that's so Sabres to lose to the Blue Jackets in overtime. But the Blue Jackets playing good. And
it's not the Blue Jackets of old where like they're kind of like a pushover. You can pretty much pencil in a win, but sometimes they'll squeak one out.
Yeah.
They're actually playing a lot like great hockey. And it sucks because, Marchenko's now out a month and a half, possibly 2 months.
Yeah.
And, he's besides Zach Werenski and like you said, Sean Monahan, who's also injured right now, he's probably their best player. He is their goal scorer.
Dude, his stats were, especially his assists, were absurd.
Yeah.
And he's at 34 assists in 53 games played. He was going to put up a 60 assist season.
Oh, yeah.
And it sucks for Columbus because Marchenko is finally breaking out. He's finally getting the
recognition.
The recognition that he deserves, and he's having a great season. And now Columbus, hopefully this doesn't fade them out of the playoffs because right now they are only 1 point behind Detroit, but Detroit does have a game in hand. Huge loss, by the way, Detroit had against Tampa Bay. I think they got killed like 6-3 or something like that. But yeah, I do think that Columbus, this is going to be huge. They can just stay at 500 and just coast until they can somehow at least get Sean Monahan back, which Sean Monahan has been out since the beginning of January. I think he got hurt in January 7th in a shootout loss against Pittsburgh. he's been gone since then. Hopefully he's back sooner rather than later. The break is coming in handy for a lot of these teams that are dealing with injuries. So we'll see where the Blue Jackets shape up come the deadline. They're in a tricky situation,
Yeah,
though.
and another thing, Marchenko's really rounded out his game. His first couple seasons, he was pretty much just a pure goal scorer. He had 4 assists his rookie year, but 21 goals. A la Victor Olofsson. But this year he had 21 goals and 34 assists. And he's really becoming an all-around player more than just pass me the puck and I can score.
I mean, it really comes to show you how some of these guys develop. Like Marchenko he's obviously put in the hard work in the offseason. He's obviously done this and that. He's done the work to become a better player. So at the end of the day, I do think that he has put in the work, and this is a huge blow for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And then you go over to some other injury news. We're going to start with Four Nations stuff because, man, are there some key names that are hurt. Yeah. I'm going to go down the list, and then we can talk about whatever them. I think William Karlsson is hurt, too. That's why Rickard Rakell is replacing him on Team Sweden. But then also Mikko Rantanen is not playing tonight due to injury. Sidney Crosby, he ended up taking a free hit against the Devils last week. He is still out tonight in the Penguins' final game.
Man, what's with the Devils and hurting star
players?
players?
Yeah, fuck them. No, I'm just kidding. And then Quinn Hughes is not playing tonight either. Quinn Hughes is an oblique injury, like you said. Before we recorded. That's going to be huge. I think Crosby and Hughes are in heavy danger of not playing in Four Nations. Rantanen should be okay.
I think out of anyone that's hurt right now, out of the 3 names, obviously Rantanen, we heard today, I believe from Frank Saravalli, he said that he shouldn't be in jeopardy of missing 4 Nations, but he will miss tonight. Crosby, I mean, you don't know. It's an arm injury.
Yeah.
And
the Penguins are giving Crosby the free range to play if he wants to, which is nice. I mean, he's earned it if he wants to go play for his country one last time, even though it's just an NHL event. It's so, repping Team Canada.
I wonder what I know this is random, but I wonder what are they going to get like a kind of like a medal or like what is the prize for winning?
Like are they? I don't know if it's a medal. I don't know if it's a trophy. I assume some type of. I would do cash prize personally.
Yeah, I mean this is kind of replacing the All-Star game this year.
Yeah.
So I could definitely see it being a cash prize.
This does feel refreshing that it is replacing the All-Star game. First off, the All-Star game would have happened last weekend, which nobody fucking cares about the All-Star game. The best part about the All-Star game last year was. If you guys didn't know, I'm a huge Tate McRae fan. And I remember I watched the All-Star game until the concert, and then I guess the performance, and then after the performance, I turned the game off. I didn't give a shit.
Yeah, no, it's like the last time I think I truly cared about an All-Star game was when they were still letting the players draft the teams.
Yes, that was fun.
And when Ovechkin's like, please pick me last, I want a car.
Yes.
And they didn't pick him last.
No, of course
not. But yeah, going on to players that could – or obviously missing is William Karlsson. He's just a great player.
Yeah, I mean,
very important for Vegas.
They picked him more like obviously he's a great player, but
he's
also
more for that like fourth
veteran.
Line role.
And it sucks because is William Eklund Swedish?
Yes.
I wanted William Eklund so bad. I thought he was going to make the roster.
Yeah,
and
I'm surprised they didn't choose him. I mean, Rakell's having a great season.
Of course,
he's on pace to have his best season in his NHL career. Actually, sorry. He's on pace to tie his career best.
What's his career? His career best with Anaheim?
Yeah, 2017, 2018. He had 34 goals, 35 assists, 69 points in 77 games.
Rickard Rakell is a reason why the Penguins are low-key kind of in this thing right now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, they're 6 points out, but still, I mean
6 points out.
Crazier shit's happened.
A lot of teams in the wild card race really have been underperforming right now.
Outside of like probably 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
So you get to that. And with Crosby, with Team Canada, Mark Scheifele now is on call.
They did say to Mark Scheifele today to be ready in case Crosby couldn't go.
And which I find kind of stupid because I thought Mark Scheifele should have been on the team either way. Yeah. I thought he should have been on the initial roster. I mean, dude's having an unreal season, and I think throwing him on there with Crosby, McDavid, McKinnon, Bedard's not on the team, right?
No. Canada didn't really go any young players. They went like very like.
The U.S. and Canada went that direction. Yeah. I noticed.
USA is stupid. Tage Thompson should have been there.
Cole Caulfield should have been there.
Yeah.
Get rid of Trocheck and Kreider.
I think I can't picture the roster in my head, but I think Clayton Keller's not on there either.
Yes, Clayton Keller's not on there either.
I feel like
three
Jason
huge
Robertson isn't either. Like, there's so many good young American players that are so skilled that I think would really propel the U.S. above, say Canada in this tournament.
So it looks like Matt Boldy's on it, but
Yeah.
where are the rosters? Okay, so the forwards here for Team USA. Where the fuck is Team U? Oh, they're all the way at the bottom. We're better.
Because
There's no Clayton Keller, so it goes Matt Boldy, Kyle Connor, Jack Eichel, Gensel, Jack Hughes, Kreider, Larkin, Matthews, JT Miller, Brock Nelson, Brady Kachuk, Matthew Kachuk, and Vincent Trocheck.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
there are
no
a couple
Keller.
people. There's a couple people I would take off that. For
I
the
would.
3 players I named.
I would.
Trocheck and Kreider, obviously.
Yes.
But do you really think this is going to be a gritty tournament? This isn't like
No,
the
this
Olympics or the playoffs. You don't need grit. I think I'd take JT Miller off that list too. Out of anyone on that list,
You would take him off over Brock Nelson.
he's a goal scorer, man.
That's true. He's having a phenomenal year.
He
I
is.
mean, he's one of the most underrated 25, 30 goal scorers in the league,
Yeah.
if not the most underrated. I mean, I'm gonna crack a joke here. It's probably not gonna be funny. But what Canadians think Cole Caulfield is,
Yeah.
Brock Nelson's that. No, I'm just
No, literally,
kidding.
to two Canadians fans, Cole Caulfield is the best 40 goal scorer to never
And
score
he's
40
gonna
goals.
hit 40 goals this season. So
He's
then
gonna
after that,
finally do it.
that
They've
meme's
said
gonna
it for
die.
like 3 or 4 years.
Yes, that meme's gonna die. Yeah, it's gonna be a
Yes.
while. I would take Tage and I would take Caulfield and a couple other guys.
There's
but-
so many guys that were left off that list that were like unfair.
yeah.
Because like obviously I'm gonna say Tage is a snub.
Mhm.
Obviously Sabres fan. But, obviously Jason Robertson, great player.
Yeah,
You know,
why
he really busted on the scene, what, like 2-3 years ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago, the same time frame that Tage did in 2021, 2022.
Yeah.
And also it didn't help that guys like Tage and like Jason Robertson didn't really get off to the greatest start.
Yeah.
I know Cole Caulfield got off to like that ridiculous hot start, which sucks because I thought for sure Tage were gonna be on the roster. I don't know why Keller's not. Like, if you want to talk about, okay, we don't want to go young, whatever. Okay, Tage is 26 years old.
Yeah.
Robertson's 25 or 26 years old. Okay, I get not going Caulfield. He's only been in the league for 3 or 4 years. He's like 22 or 23, I think. He might not even be that old. I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head.
Same age as us.
Yes. And then you look at Keller. Keller's been in the league since what, 2015, 2016?
I think 2016.
You like the U.S. cannot use the argument of wanting to not go as like super young and then leave Clayton Keller off the list for the guys. And all due respect to like JT Miller, which I think he's okay on this list, but like Chris Kreider is having a horrible season.
Yeah. I mean, Trocheck, he's a good player. Don't get me wrong. I don't think that's what the U.S. needs for this tournament. Like I said, this isn't the playoffs. These guys aren't going to be like hitting each other. This is going to be like a glorified all-star tournament.
Right. Like I would get this if this was for the Olympics and you're playing a round robin in your pool, and then you would play like a quarterfinal, semifinal. Like I get this. This roster would be fine for that. I would be okay with it. But you're only playing one team once, and then plus I think is there semifinals and a championship?
Yes, I believe so.
Hold up, I can
I
check
think you're
here in a second.
guaranteed like.
No, so it literally goes. You play one team each, and then it's a championship game.
Oh, okay. Right.
Canada, yeah. That's how it goes. You play one team each because you have Canada,
so
Sweden.
3 games, and then it's the championship already.
Yeah. So there's a game the 12th, 13th, 15th, and then 17th, and the championship game is the 20th.
So how do they determine whoever are the top 2 after the round robin?
I guess so.
That-
I mean, it could be something along the lines of like. 3 teams are 3 teams are physically cannot tie at the top. So it's going to be the top 2 teams or whatever. So that makes sense. So because there's not going to be any tiebreaker scenarios with the championship game, it makes sense. I think a semifinals would be kind of dumb anyways. There's not enough teams for it. If there was if you threw Russia and Germany in there, there were even enough players for.
I
Germany.
think there should be like a Team Europe and a team like
There
you should
been.
make this like the World Cup of hockey where you have the Team Europe and Team North America. I think a lot of U23 players in the US and Canada could make it.
Yes, I agree, and I think maybe like either you could go that route or you can do like how they have it now and then do a Team Europe and then Team Russia. I think would still be okay because you have enough players in the NHL to just fill Russia.
You
And
do.
then, like, Team Europe, like, you can get, like, David Pastrnak, Draisaitl, JJ Peterka, a couple other guys I haven't named, Nico Hischier. So you can get guys that are from Czechia, Slovakia, Germany.
It's
So,
the only way Slavkovsky's going to be on anything.
okay, that was a whole. What are we doing here? That was a horrible shot at Slav. Yeah, I'm excited to watch it, though.
Yeah,
So.
no, it's definitely going to be interesting to watch.
It is.
I mean, there's going to be no NHL hockey, so if I want to watch any hockey, that's going to be it.
Or you can watch college hockey. All right, let's transition over to the Islanders
Yeah.
real quick. So the Islanders are back in the wild card race. At one point, they were down in the basement. They were, I think, like 8 or 9 points out. And then they go on to rattle off like 7 or 8 straight wins. They are on an absolute tear. Sorokin's playing great since the end of January. The only thing, Matthew Barzal, I pronounced that horribly wrong. I'm sorry. Matthew with the what?
Before we start recording, he called him Mart Barzal.
Yeah, Matthew with 1 T. There we go.
Yeah.
Barzy, I guess I can call him.
Yeah.
He is out indefinitely. It's looking like it's season ending, which to me it doesn't kill their hopes and dreams. But I think even if they got into the playoffs, their first round exit.
Yeah, I do think it'll depend on who they face. I think Sorokin can 100% steal you a series, especially if you get like Ryan Pollock and Noah Dobson back from injury, which Noah Dobson might get traded.
Noah Dobson, you are a
Buffalo Sabre.
Washington Capital.
Buffalo Sabre.
Washington Capital.
Buffalo Sabre.
Okay.
No, we will get into that in a couple seconds.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just another freak injury that it's a routine play that you're blocking a shot and it just hits you at the perfect spot and your season's pretty much done.
And it sucks because he was having a good season too. Patrick Waugh has really brought his offensive game out. And the crazy part is that Barzal's defensive game has improved so much since coming into the league. If he at one point in his career, if he wasn't producing offensively, he was a liability on defense.
Yeah.
Now he's in the 81st percentile in defense since being before he was out with injury, and he's just overall developed a nice two-way game. And I'm not saying here that you should get Selke votes and he should go out there and he should be up there in a category of like Nico Hischier and
Mitch
Barkov
Marner.
and Mitch Marner's defense has actually been really good. I just think that he should.
Yeah, no, he's an above average defender, but he's not elite.
He's not a liability on defense anymore, which is nice.
And he wasn't having the best offensive season, by any means.
Yeah, it was like average.
But I mean, 20 points in 30 games. He was pretty much focusing more on his defensive game and letting his offense transition off that.
Yeah.
Everyone sees it. We saw it last year, or a couple years ago. Keandre Miller had a really good offensive season. Then the next year, he focuses on his defense.
And
so
now
his offense takes a dip.
Now the Rangers just fucking ruined him.
Yeah, no. They fumbled him.
Yeah, they did. And then with the Islanders, glad you brought up Noah Dobson. What the fuck are we talking about Noah Dobson? I get they want to improve their offensive depth and their offensive scoring. I get that in New York, okay? Lou Lamoriello, Islanders fans hate you. I get you're a storied GM. You're one of the best GMs of all time. Lou, I'm sorry. It's time to hang it up. I don't know what we're talking about with having Noah Dobson available, and I get shopping the market, seeing his value on the market, seeing what you can possibly get if you can improve it. Great, okay, he's gonna be an RFA at the end of this season. He's gonna get a raise from I think he's making $5 million or something like that, between 4 to 5, $4 million. So Noah Dobson, what is the likelihood that he can end up getting traded by the deadline?
By the deadline, I'm not sure if. I mean, he's on IR right now. I don't believe you can get traded on IR. Well, I mean, you can, but I don't know if you could do it in season.
I have no idea.
But I think if he gets traded, it's going to be a draft trade. Just because, someone's just going to be trading for his rights pretty much.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure the possibility of him coming back this season. But it just doesn't make sense to
Just
even entertain it. This is reminding me a lot of Devin Taves. You know, he's getting really good where you're going to have to pay him a lot of money that you may not want to pay him, and they're just going to offload him.
And then you know what happens? He turns into an even better defenseman on the next team. Devin Taves was a huge part in Colorado's 2022 Cup run. Noah Dobson is going to the Washington Capitals, and he's going to be a big part of their 2025-26 Cup run.
No.
I can't believe I just said that out loud.
No, he's not.
Okay.
He is going to be a Buffalo Sabre.
Okay.
So I came up with this mock trade yesterday, and I'm thinking, how can I get Noah Dobson onto the Buffalo Sabres while also moving Dylan Cousins?
He's not coming to the Sabres.
He's not. But I sure made a mock trade.
Okay, shoot it.
All right. I have Dylan Cousins, Bowen Byram, Noah Ostlund, and a second-round pick for Noah Dobson and Matt Barzal. Listen.
Explain this.
I will explain it because you're getting, you're buying low on Cousins pretty much right now, but he has that 31-goal season a couple years ago. He can definitely come back to that in a different system. I could see Patty Waugh getting it out of him.
Yes, dude. I wrote an article for the Hockey Writers, and I just released it today. That was something about the Islanders should try to trade for Dylan Cousins. Yeah. And I said Patrick Waugh can revitalize Dylan Cousins like he did with Matthew Barzal.
Yeah. Barzal is getting on the older side.
Wait, is he that old?
He's like 27, 28.
Okay, fair enough.
So he's getting up there in age. He's got a high cap hit. You're getting younger while also still having 6 years left with Cousins. Ostlund can be your potential future 2C, or you can develop him in. He's actually working on his defensive game in Rochester right now, so he's getting a lot better.
He struggled in Rochester at first, but lately, over the last month, he's been good in Rochester.
Again, you are working on your defense. You're going to sacrifice offense, and then it's going to come later, and it's starting to come in.
And what if the Islanders pivot and they like instead of Austin throw Rosen, you still do that?
Yes. If I'm getting Matt Barzal and Noah Dobson, I think I throw. I think I throw.
If I'm the Sabres going into that, I'm sorry, we're pivoting to the Sabres here. If I'm the Sabres, I'm not going in there giving up Owen Byram. I'm like, we'll do Owen Power, Dylan Cousins, and instead of Byram, we'll start with Power.
I think they take that anyway because again, he's already locked up.
But at the same time, though, like the thing with Owen Power is, we've talked about it with Preston, is I'm hesitant to trade him because he is such a young defenseman. I don't want to give up on defensemen way too young.
Yeah, it's the same thing with Dahlin. Like a bunch of Sabres fans are like, oh, right off his ELC, he's like, oh, we need to get rid of this guy. He's not worth the first overall pick. Owen Power, he played in college. There's not a lot of hitting in college. Mm-hmm. He's 6'6". He's still growing into his body. It's barely 21 years old, and he's only going to get better. It takes so long for a defenseman for your mind to adjust to the game. Mm-hmm. Not even just your mind, your body, to adjust to the game. And I think Owen Power is going to be a lot better than he is right now. At least I hope so, because we're paying him a lot of money. Go ahead. I'd also love to keep Bowen Byram, but if Noah Dobson's available, he's 6'4". He's right-handed. He puts up anywhere from 50 to 70
points.
His
defensive game this season has been great.
Yeah,
it's in the 77th percentile.
When he's 46 games this season, and
he's been good.
Yeah,
and I think it's very unrealistic that they do trade him. I think, again, they're just shopping the market, seeing what his value is. And
that's what you do as a GM.
Right. I get the dude, whoever brought it out. I don't know. I don't even know who. It was an article from RG or something. I don't know the dude's name.
Yeah, I don't know.
But he's like, the Islanders, like, if they can improve their scoring depth, like Noah Dobson is on the table, he is available for trade. And I'm thinking, I'm like, dude, can we not be idiots and trade Noah Dobson? Just sign him to an 8x8 or 8x9. Like, okay, maybe 9's a little bit too much, but like an 8x8 we can do.
Yeah, I think Lou's gonna come in at like 7.5.
Like if I'm Dobson though, and he offers me at $7 million, I'm going to arbitration. He is arbitration eligible, and or you can be like, I don't even know when he's gonna be a UFA at.
Usually you're a UFA when you hit. I think 7th season or you're 27 years old. He's 25 right now.
Okay, you know what? We'll do a $2 by $7 million contract, And if we won't do it, we're going to fucking arbitration. And if I'm Dobson, I don't care because Dobson is worth more than $7 million in my opinion. Especially with the cap going up, he needs to be sitting there. If that offer comes up, and he's like, "Are you out of your mind?" Like the cap is going up $9 million going into next season, and then another $9 to $10 million the following season. I'm worth more than $7 million.
Actually, like people were doing like the calculations, and they're like, yeah, a $7 million contract today is going to be like a $5 million contract in 3 years.
Yeah.
So like, because the cap's going up so much, that I think you're going to see a lot of like high AAV signings in the next year or two, just because that cap is going up.
And that's the thing that we like people that evaluate the signings and stuff. It's like, let's say some like second defenseman, for example, or let's say you use Noah Dobson, for example. Okay, let's say the Islanders and Noah Dobson somehow agree on a 8 by $10.5 million deal. That's such an overpay. What are the Islanders doing? Yeah, but in 2 years, it's going to be an $8 million contract now.
It's going to be in today's money like
that'll be fair value for him in 3 years.
Yeah.
And when
he'd actually
be even better.
He'd actually be getting underpaid by market standards.
Yeah, exactly. So, because when Makar's contract is up in 2 years, he's going to probably get fucking $16 million.
I don't know about 16. I think he'll
16.
Definitely be 14, 15.
I think 16. I think when 100.
You think he's gonna pass Draisaitl?
Yes. Oh, I think a lot of players are going to pass Draisaitl.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think,
I think what's going to happen with the free agency market and signing people is what happens in the NFL with quarterbacks. You're going to get 1 year. You're just getting topped. Like at one point, me and Preston have talked about this, where Allen and Mahomes, when they signed their current deals, they were the top 5 highest paid quarterbacks in the league. Now they're in the 14th and 15th range. That's going to happen now, and it sucks to see too because McKinnon's making 12.6, and in 3 years, not even 2 years, you look at that and be like, he's getting underpaid as fuck.
Yeah.
That's
kind of how it is, You sign for what you signed for at the time,
Right. And
at the time, 12.5 was a lot.
Right.
I think McDavid was getting 12.5 at the time.
What was that? What was it? 3 years ago he signed it?
Yeah. Yeah, McDavid was still on his.
Mm-hmm.
Is he still on that contract, the 12.5?
No, I thought he was making 10.
Oh yeah, no, he was 10.5. I thought he went up to 12.5.
I'm gonna double check that for you real quick. We're the Edmonton Oilers here.
Okay, I could be remembering wrong. Or it was
McDavid. No, he is making 12.5.
Okay.
He has 2 years left. So he has 1 year left after this year at 12.5, and then he's a UFA in 26, 27.
I honestly, I know this is gonna sound absolutely bizarre. I think in order for him to stay in Edmonton, they have to pay him at least 20. With the rising cap, I think that if for him to stay in Edmonton, it'd have to be close to 20.
20?
I get Draisaitl signed long term, hoping that McDavid would be there. But I think for Connor, not even thinking monetarily wise, but career wise.
This is crazy. Okay, this is crazy. Okay, something came to my mind. If you're the Edmonton Oilers, let's say you start at 16, for example. Let's say that's your starting point. Connor McDavid, let's say, comes at 18, whatever. Not a bad working ground, right? The Blackhawks come in. We got fucking Connor Bedard. We're paying him $12 million. Yeah. We'll give you $19 million to come to Chicago. Are you taking that? Even if Chicago's bad.
Well, they won't be bad anymore because they got Bedard and McDavid. What else do they need?
Mikko Rantanen will probably have to.
And Mitch Marner. What are we doing?
I love it with the Blackhawks.
Well, Seth Jones is still there.
Oh, fuck, man. You know what, Edmonton, we'll give you another $9.5 million contract that who's not even that good as an overpay.
You can put Nurse and Jones together, have the most overpaid and overrated
You
contracts
have $19 million on one pair, and they're not even top 4 D-men.
I mean, the Sabres might have that with Dahlin and Byram next year.
At least Byram's a Stanley Cup champion, and Dahlin's a first overall pick. Not throwing no power, it's getting a little iffy. But the thing with the Blackhawks is, dude, it's like one day the Blackhawks are gonna make a heavy push for Marner. Next day, Rantanen. Every fucking team is going to make it. I have Connor Bedard, but the thing that's failed with the Blackhawks is trying to get Bertuzzi and Teravainen and Hall, getting these budget veterans. That's not going to work with Bedard. Now Bedard is good enough where give him a Marner. I think Mikko Rantanen.
He needs another stud next to him. He can't be playing with fucking Patrick Maroon and expect him to do well.
What are we doing, Chicago? Go out and get Mikko Rantanen if you have to overpay and give him $15 million. do it.
Honestly, with the way his Carolina stint's been going, I don't think he's going to stay.
I don't think he's gonna stay. Like I brought it up with Jimmy. And we'll get to that collab later. That's part of this episode. That's why it's so long. But I will say I talked about it with Jimmy and Zach, and I do think that Jimmy said that if they win a cup with Mikko somehow, he's staying.
Oh yeah, no.
Not to spoil it for you guys.
If you win a cup, yeah, you're gonna stay.
Yeah.
But
Go ahead.
obviously, the numbers got to be right for Rantanen.
Yeah, it definitely does have to be right at 15. Sorry, I think he's going to get more 14 on the market. I think that is his market value, is the same as Draisaitl. And I wonder if Colorado, like, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe Colorado knew about the injuries he's dealing with, and that's why he's not playing good. But, I mean, Martin Necas and Jack Drury are playing phenomenal, especially Necas in Colorado. He is playing out of his mind. He looks good. The Avalanche looks so much better.
It's his speed. Not that Rantanen can't play with Makar and, McKinnon, but, he has a slower style of play. He kind of slows everything down to his pace. But with Necas and McKinnon going up the wings together, it's just like you can't take both of them. And then you got Makar on the back end who can blow by you as well. It's just you pretty much when you need a goal at the end of the game, you're down one, you pretty much have an all-star team out there.
Yeah, you do.
And the Sabres happen to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, with the Avalanche, I think a lot of things have changed. Like, their GM has recognized that they need that deep team in order to make a run, and he saw it in 2022. I don't know if he was their current GM. He probably was. 2022, that
Chris
deep.
McDonald,
Yeah.
I think is his name.
They ended up winning the cup in 2022. They were the deepest team in the league.
I think Sakic, was the GM at that time, but right after the season was over, he stepped down and became a higher position.
Is he president of hockey ops?
I think so. He's something higher up above GM.
Fair enough.
But also, speaking of Colorado, just right off the top of my head, we're gonna do a trade here.
Oh, that's crazy.
Casey Middlestat for Bowen Byram. Who says no?
Fucking rewrite the. You know what? We're going back and forth.
Yeah.
I wonder how much trade value Casey Middlestat has right now.
I'd put his value right now. He's signed he's got 2 years left on this deal, just under $6 million. He's not having the best season of his career, but he's also not having the worst. I'd say right now his value's maybe a second-round pick and a roster player.
I wonder if a team that, a contender, is looking at the Avalanche and is like, we'll take Casey Middlestat off of your hands, we'll give you a roster player and a second-round pick.
I wonder if the Sabres are looking to be like, hey.
All right, what the fuck is...
No, I'm serious. They know him. They know what he can do. They know what he's capable of. He's not performing in Colorado. I wouldn't put it past Kevin Adams to trade for him.
I was thinking more like the Washington Capitals.
You say everyone's going to the Capitals.
Dude, dude, they need.
I don't think they need anything. They've got two good goalies. Their defense is rolling. Their offense has been elite.
I know their offense has been elite. They've allowed the second fewest goals in the league. Guess number one, the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah.
And
I really think if they're going to add something, it's going to be a high-end forward, not a middle six.
I think they need middle six. Either that, or I did bring up the point again. I'm sorry, I'm spoiling things. Holy fuck! Is that I do think that they need that guy that you did bring up a good point about. They need that guy that's gonna go down there and be like, I'm getting a goal no matter what. So, and Carolina tried to get that with Rantanen. It's not working out so far, but we're only 7 games in with him in Carolina.
I think Rantanen's problem is, he's not used to playing a defensive system that Rod Brind'Amour commands his players to play.
I think that's part of it,
and
too.
He's not the only goal scorer.
That's true.
He's got to share the ice with Svechnikov. He's got Aho.
And fucking
Jarvis.
Can we give Jarvis more minutes? Thank you, Jarvis is a beauty.
Yeah,
dude, he is the one player that I would love to have on the bottom. He's the one player that I want.
Yeah, no, I'd be lying if I said I didn't want him in the 2020 draft when we drafted Quinn.
And you know what? A set Jarvis jersey would look sick on here.
Yeah.
With the new Utah jersey.
Get rid of there.
Dude, he can be traded so I can get a Jarvis jersey. Let's go, buddy.
Yeah. Or we can get rid of this one.
I don't know.
No, you're swapping it out for a Sabres one next year, right?
Okay, buddy.
Hey, Sabres got cap space. They're gonna be going.
What was your initial take on the trade? Because I don't think we really talked about the Rantanen trade.
My initial reaction was I was at work and I saw, obviously Taylor Hall. It first came out that Taylor Hall was going to Carolina, or he was going somewhere in a 3-team trade. It turned out to be Carolina, and then like 15 minutes later, it comes out. Frank Seravalli tweets that Rantanen's going to Carolina too, and I'm just like, wait, what?
That came out of left field.
Yeah, no, we did. I can. You can have 1 in a million shots to guess who would be the third team. I don't think you're saying Colorado, because what do they really have to add? Obviously, they added what they needed, but Mikko Rantanen's definitely not a player I had being traded, especially not before the deadline. If he was going to be traded, I expected it to be a deadline deal, just because you hear they're not really talking about contracts or their negotiations aren't going that well, and you got a star player that wants 14-15 million dollars, or at the time it came out that he wanted that, but he now says that he was willing to take less to stay. Now you get Necas that he's getting paid 6.5 for another year after this one, and then he's gonna hit the UFA market. I wonder if how this season, the end of this season and next season goes, if he changes his mind on that. Because he did come out and say before he signed this current contract with Carolina that he was signing a 2-year. This was when his name was in like trade talks and everything. He was going to sign a 2-year deal no matter what, and then hit free agency, whether if it was with Carolina or a different team. I wonder if that changes now that he's on a line with McKinnon and they're rolling. Maybe he's willing to stay in Colorado.
If I'm Necas, I want to stay in Colorado.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it definitely gives you the best chance to win. It's easier to stay in a system and where you're playing well than to leave and hope you have success somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm with you. I want to go over to the Eastern Conference now, talk about the Red Wings before we get into Zach and Jimmy on the episode to finish it off. How about the fucking Red Wings, man? Ever since Todd McLellan came in, they're 15-5-1. He has been absolutely great. 2 separate 6+ game winning streaks. I know you want to bring up Patty Kane. You can do so. Patty Kane has been absolutely phenomenal for this team. He had a disgusting shootout move against Seattle to put him as, I think it was like the most shootout goals of all time or something like that.
The all-time goal leader for shootouts.
Yes, he's been a baller. The Red Wings in general, like the one thing that does concern me a little bit about them is their goaltender and the goaltending. And they're so top-heavy on the forward core and on the blue line. Outside of Edvinsson and Seider, it hasn't been great on the blue line. And then you go over to the forward guys. Like, I love Kane. I love Larkin, Raymond. But, I'm sure I'm missing a couple guys. DeBrincat has been phenomenal. He had a great feed to Patrick Kane on the power play earlier today. But, yeah, like, outside of that, like, you don't have many guys you can go to. Like, if the depth just isn't there.
Yeah, I mean, their depth's a lot older. They do have some. Obviously, they have Tarasenko.
Mm-hmm.
They've got Andrew Cobb, JT Compher. They've got capable guys, but I definitely think Patrick Kane, has, he's coming not back to form, but he's playing a lot better than he did under Lalonde.
Yeah.
He's on pace for his best season since the 2021-2022 season where he had 92 points, and I think him really clicking definitely helps them because that means your depth is playing well together.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. Detroit is obviously they're on this hot run, and is it sustainable? Is my question.
It can be, I think, but them being this streaky with McLellan, it kind of screams red flags. I don't like streaky teams. I love those teams that can just consistently win hockey games. Like, even if you're just winning 3 in a row and then you drop one and then you win another 2, drop one. I would rather have that than a team go out and win 7 straight. It's like, oh, man, they're on the rise, and then they drop 3 straight. Like, I don't want that. Like, I think Detroit is the one team in the playoff rates that I don't trust. I definitely trust Tampa Bay and Ottawa more than Detroit. Tampa Bay smacked Detroit, as I mentioned. And I kind of trust Boston over Detroit. Even though Swayman isn't playing great.
I think Swayman can get back to his level of standard. If they really needed him to like step up to make the playoffs, like a Andrew Hammond type run, obviously not as, you don't got to win 18 games to make the playoffs. But, if they're like 2 points out and they need a win to get in, I think he could definitely get it for them.
Yeah.
Not saying they would go far in the playoffs, but I definitely think if it comes down to Detroit and Boston, I'd be more comfortable with Boston getting in. But also, I believe Alex Lyon today in Tampa let in like 3 or 4 goals on 7 shots.
I know first period
he got pulled pretty
early. It was 4 on 7. I don't know if it was him.
It was Lyon who got pulled.
Well, I know he got pulled, but I don't know if it was after the third goal because they had 3 goals on 5 shots.
Yeah.
So maybe he got pulled after the third goal. Either way, because I was kind of watching at work, but I wasn't super paying attention. And just looking, every time I look over at the TV screen, there's another fucking goal for Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not going to sit here and hate on Detroit, but I do think that maybe it's unsustainable and maybe like I don't trust him as much. Now, if Detroit can always go out here and shut me the hell up, and they're like, "Yeah, look at you, like you fuck face, like we're in the playoffs." Like, great. I would much rather have Detroit in the playoffs than the Boston Bruins. I think they're better to watch, to be honest with you. And as somebody who's a fan of a team that is allergic to the playoffs, like I just want to watch good hockey, and I think Detroit can bring that to the table. But I don't know. I do think that Boston will eventually prevail. I do think they have the experience. They have the guys. I think David Pastrnak is going to will that team to a playoff berth.
Yeah. So Alex Lyon let 2 goals in on 3 shots in 3 minutes of the game, and then he got pulled.
He got pulled after that?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
2 goals on 3 shots, less than 3 minutes of the game. And then Cam Talbot let 3 in 14.
Well, it's clearly not a goaltending issue if that shit happened after you pulled Lyon thinking it was going to solve shit.
I don't think anything. I think as soon as your goalie lets in 2 to start the game, I think that's just demoralizing for any team.
Yeah, of course. It's definitely demoralizing. And
They definitely had those 2 goals not gone in because it ended 6-3, 6-4.
Yeah.
I definitely think it's a different game if that doesn't happen.
Yeah, for sure. Detroit might come out there with at least 1 point. Maybe the game squeaks into overtime. I don't know. Shootout. I don't know. Do you see Detroit as a playoff team?
Right now, if they had a full season under McLellan, yes. But I'm not confident in them.
This might be another season of Detroit where they're gonna miss by a point or 2. And I'm afraid for Red Wings fans to say that because Detroit, I'm rooting for you guys. Like I know I've gotten away from the Sabres, Senators, and Red Wings rivalry of like, oh, who's gonna be better first? I've said fuck it. Like Detroit, I'm rooting for you guys to get in the playoffs. Please get in the playoffs. I don't think it's gonna happen though.
No, to be honest, I think out of the 2 wildcard teams in the East, I think Columbus and Boston have a better chance than Detroit and Ottawa. And that's not me being a hater. Columbus, they're a different team this year. They're playing great. They're only going to get better when their players come back. And Boston, they're just that experienced team. Swayman has those stinkers every once in a while, but they can win a game when they really need to.
You know what? Give me the Ottawa Senators to finish 3rd in the Atlantic Division. I think Tampa Bay is that wildcard 1 team. I think Boston's number 2. I think we get 5 teams out of the Atlantic Division in the playoffs, no matter what. I just
have a feeling about Columbus this year.
Like I would love to see Columbus in there, but I just think the injury to Marchenko is going to be too much to overcome. And I love Werenski. I think he should be Norris finalist, but I just think it's going to be too much for him. He's not going to be able to carry the entire team to the playoffs. And something against Werenski, but he's no McDavid, Makar, McKinnon, those type of guys.
I'd say, with Marchenko being out, I'd say if Monahan was still there, I'd be more confident in them. But I still think it could happen.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like I think they still have a fighting shot. I'm not completely counting them out.
They're like a point or 2 out, I believe.
Now. They are. They're a point out right now with Detroit has a game on hand, and then they're tied with Ottawa right now. So we'll see where the win takes us. But this Eastern Conference race is different than last year. Where last year literally every team was losing. And now it feels like teams actually are starting to win hockey, which is nice.
Of course, when the Sabres try and show up for their end of the season hot streak, when they're already out of the playoffs, they're not gaining ground.
Yeah, it is what it is. I think it's going to be fun. That's going to wrap that up, guys. I'm going to take you guys over to JimmyHockey and Zach Staden coming on the podcast with myself to talk a little bit about Mikko Rantanen, the Eastern Conference playoff race, Central Division race, plus so much more. Thank you guys for being here, and we'll see you guys in our next episode. Today's episode, I have a couple of guests for you guys. With Preston gone today, I have JimmyHockey joining the podcast, as well as a new guest, Zach Staden from ZS Hockey. Fellas, thank you guys for joining the pod. How are you guys doing today?
Doing good, man. Appreciate the invite.
Same as me. Doing great. And again, just as Jimmy said, appreciate the invite. Yeah.
course, anytime, guys. So, about 3 to 4 days ago, another player poll from The Athletic got put out. I think a little bit over 100 players ended up putting out the poll. So, I want to go over that a little bit because there's definitely some surprising stuff, whether it's from which coach is least likely you want to play for to most likely. Or we know there's some non-shockers like having Winnipeg on your no trade list. I think almost about 50% of the players that voted had it on that, considering that Winnipeg, sure, they have all the success, but that city is one of the smallest markets, if not the smallest market in the entire NHL. And the city just has nothing to do. And it's cold about 9 months out of the year, and this isn't me shitting on Winnipeg. I'm sure it's a great city. If you live there, I'm sorry if there's any Winnipeg natives that are listening or watching this, but the entire player pool, it's interesting to see where players are coming from with certain stuff. But what were you guys' first reactions on it?
Yeah, for the Winnipeg thing, I'm actually not surprised they said it, but I feel like this is like such an old narrative for Winnipeg that kind of needs to change. When we talk about like Winnipeg, think about whenever they get players, they usually end up staying. We see Scheifele, Hellebuck, Kyle Connor. They're all like signed to really good contracts too. So I think this is like reading a book by its cover type of situation where like once you get to Winnipeg, I think a lot of the players like playing there, but just because of like the cold, the taxes, or whatever other reasons, maybe the life outside of hockey isn't great. So it's tough to see that still happening, especially with them being the best team in the league right now. But yeah, not too surprising with that one.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, Winnipeg, it's not the place you want to be. I mean, you go down south, you can pick like Florida, maybe like Dallas for the taxes. If you're feeling California, then you love that. But I agree with Jimmy, man. Like, if I think for players, if they want to go somewhere, like if you're really having to go somewhere, and the Jets are winning, like we'll probably get into them later, but they're first. Like they have 81 points. They're almost at 40 wins. This is a crazy year for them. You have a guy like Connor Hellebuck in it. Why wouldn't you want to go there this year, even if it's just for a year? Long term, I get it. It's not the livability is not great. I'm from Canada. I'm not from Winnipeg, but I mean, it gets cold, right? So it's not somewhere you want to be if you were to choose a place like maybe the Panthers or maybe even a historic team like Montreal or New York or something like that. I get it. But yeah, no, it's not surprising.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it from the fact that, sure, on the surface level, it doesn't seem like that appealing of a city to go play for and go live in for especially an extended amount of time. But like Jimmy brought up, when you have those star players, your three core players plus Josh Morrissey, I guess you can throw four in there, that really are shown the league that being in Winnipeg is not that bad of a thing. Like if you're winning and you have team success, that changes everything. And sure, maybe some of the cities in like Florida, for example, like Tampa Bay in Florida, even if they were bad, maybe players go there because there's no taxes, it's hot, whatever, like you have a comfortable life. In Winnipeg, you don't have that luxury. And when you have the best goaltender in the league in Hellebuck, when you have Mark Scheifele, who unfortunately got snubbed from Four Nations on that roster, and plus other guys that are like, listen, we're one of the best teams in the league. Why don't you come help us try to win a Stanley Cup? Let's say they say that to some free agents. Maybe it happens. Maybe they get a big fish. We saw everything happen with Nikolai Ehlers over the summer. He's still in Winnipeg. So it's not like they're just losing superstars all because of the city itself. They're playing winning hockey. And I think at the end of the day, that's all that matters. And 50% of these players instead of Winnipeg, they wouldn't go to Winnipeg. I think once they got there, maybe their mind changes. I don't know. Who knows?
It's still crazy to me too, because like what makes Winnipeg worse than like say we'll try to stick with Canada-based teams like Ottawa. What has Ottawa done that Winnipeg hasn't? You know what I mean? Like it's cold in Ottawa. Yeah, outside of like maybe the lifestyle, which I'm not familiar with Winnipeg at all, so I don't even want to speak on that. But like what separates like Ottawa or Calgary from like Winnipeg in terms of like we don't want to go here? Or let's even pick like a US team. Why do more players want to go to Buffalo than they do Winnipeg? Like with Buffalo's track record recently, like how is that? It's a little bit confusing to me. I think Winnipeg gets a really bad rep here, and I think they deserve a lot more than all of this like flack. So hopefully we see that change. Maybe a few key free agents go there, gets around the league a little bit more, and Winnipeg can kind of prove that they're a pretty legit organization to play for.
Yeah, no, I agree with Jimmy. I mean, like that's actually a good point. people are going to Buffalo. The team has sucked for years, and the
Yeah.
weather isn't great either.
I'm sure
Like,
taxes are bad too, right?
Yeah,
So what's the
taxes are
difference?
fucking horrible too,
Yeah.
boys.
No offense. No offense.
No, what's the
to
difference, man?
Buffalo.
I
Right,
just
there
don't
is
get
no
it.
difference.
I just
There's
don't
no
get it, man.
difference.
Like, it's fine if you want to say maybe they're top 5, like, sure, but 50%? That's really where
It's
what's up with it? I don't get it.
It's ridiculous, and there's certain teams up north. Like, what's stopping somebody from, instead of going to Winnipeg, going to Seattle? Like legitimately, like there's nothing. Like Seattle is, it just makes no sense. I don't know. That's besides the point. But I don't like the rap that Winnipeg gets. They're a successful franchise to an extent. They have players that know what it takes to win. They just need to get over the hump in the regular season. And if players around the league see Winnipeg, let's say this year, for example, because they're, I think, like 9 points ahead of the second place team in the entire league, or at least Western Conference. If they get to the Western Conference Finals or possibly even make it to the Cup Final, I think there might be a change in some players' thought process of, man, I don't want to go to Winnipeg. Now they'll be like, they have a roster to go win a cup. I want to go win a cup. I'm playing in, I don't care if I'm playing in California on the Ducks or Sharks at all, and it's nice weather here. I'm putting my career first. We're moving wherever to go play in Winnipeg and win a cup. That's just what I'm thinking here.
Yeah, it makes me think kind of poorly of the people voting on Winnipeg. Like, what's your priority here? Like, obviously, money, family, big things, and like player empowerment. Like, you obviously want to think of that first, but like thinking career wise, like you can't tell me playing for the Ducks right now is better than playing for the Jets if you want to win sooner rather than later. Obviously, the Ducks have a better future, I'm guessing. But even with the Jets, man, like, do you think that, like, what's the best path for this team at this point? Do you think that they should be moving on from Ehlers, like we kind of were just talking about, with him coming up to be a free agent, I think, this offseason? And, like, should they be adding this year? Can they add? Like, it really stinks to see that the Jets are in this position where it's like they're so good, but I don't know if they're really going to be this team in the playoffs without any additions. Because last year's team, in my opinion, was better offensively, at least with Sean Monahan and Tyler Toffoli on that roster. And without those two, I'm not sure if I can't even think of who their second line center is. So yeah, it's not the best. It's Nemestikov. Yeah, I was going to say that, but I wasn't sure if he was still doing it. So yeah, it's kind of a tough go for them right now. I'm not convinced their depth is going to be great in the playoffs, and their defense has a lot of question marks. So do you guys think they should make some moves at this point, or is it just impossible?
I mean, like when I look at the Jets team, they're having a lot more contributions from guys that maybe weren't doing that last year. Like Gabe Vilardi, if I'm correct, he had some time last year where he was hurt, and this year he's looking a lot better. Cole Perfetti has taken a step. Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele have been this unreal duo that some people aren't even talking about right now, honestly, in the NHL. Nikolai Ehlers, you mentioned earlier in this podcast that he didn't want to be in Winnipeg. We thought he was going to get traded. He stays, and he's been good this year. Like, he's been the same type of guy. But the one thing that kind of makes me a little bit nervous about Winnipeg, especially, is that I think they need one more bigger defenseman. I thought that was going to be Rasmus Anderson. Seems like he might stay in Calgary. Who knows? And even as you just mentioned, Jimmy, that depth on that team, are they going to be able to do it? Like, a lot of their bigger guys are stepping up, which is great. But are you going to be getting that depth scoring from the randos in the lineup in IXL Follow, Mason Hamilton, who's actually low-key been good, or Niederreiter?
I have a player that's currently on a team that's a bottom feeder in the league. I know, Zach, I think you posted him on your story earlier today, and Ryan Donato. I ended up writing about him for the Hockey Writers 2 or 3 days ago about a player that the Jets should go acquire. I think if you're the Jets, going and get Ryan Donato to be your third line center, I think would be huge. Or maybe even he goes on your fourth. Maybe you throw Adam Lowry on the third line, keep him there. Either way, though, if you go out and get Ryan Donato, I think that's some of the best center depth in the league. Or maybe you're like, you know what, we have to improve the wing. Or maybe you go out and get a blue line, because I don't like their blue line at all outside of the top two guys. I mean, Neil Pionk's good, but then out of your bottom three guys are not that great, in my opinion. So going out, they do have a couple holes. I think Hellebuck having close to a historic goaltender season is definitely helping them. They have struggled to score at times. So if they can go out and either get another defenseman to solidify that top four, so you have two reliable pairs going into the playoffs, or you go out and solidify your top nine so you can roll three lines at all times instead of having to shorten the bench to, instead of 9 players, now you're down to 7, whatever. Like, No, you can't do that in the playoffs. You need to add depth. I think this team will at some point at the deadline address their needs. I don't know how big the splashes are going to be. I don't expect them to go out and get a guy like, let's say, Brock Nelson if he's available, if the Islanders fall out of it. I don't expect that type of move. But, shit, you never know with this team.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe I actually do expect that Brock Nelson's one of the guys that I could see playing. He kind of fits age timeline, but I think a better guy they should be going for. Keep a close eye on Columbus, maybe Provorov if he becomes available. He might be able to add a little bit more depth to their blue line. I wouldn't really go for a forward though if I was the Jets. Like I don't think offense was their problem last year. I think their defense really hurt Hellebuck. Even after the series, Hellebuck was like, I think I played great. And it was just the defense, basically, in other words. So I think that should be their target if they're going to try to improve. Provorov, not Dobson. That's not what they need. They got to get a bigger guy who's more defensive minded. So,
yeah, I agree. Lots for Winnipeg to do. I kind of have my big spiel on them. So I mean, man, go and get Brock Nelson. Send away Brad Lambert or something. Who knows?
commit, man. They just got to commit. You have a window. These guys aren't going to get any younger, and Hellebuck's not going to do this every year. Eventually, it's not going to be historic like this. So seize the moment when the West is. I don't want to say open. It's tough, but you have a chance maybe this year to do something.
I'll also point out Adam Lowry is still hurt for them, so that's like a big piece
Also true.
missing. Like,
yeah, that's
not
good point.
great.
Yeah.
I want to pivot over to the Tage Thompson stuff that has happening the entire week. Last Sunday, he ended up taking a hit from Stefan Noesen to the head, middle of the third period. He got knocked out. He didn't play the next game. He should be back in tonight. But the big thing is that there was no response from the Sabres team. I've heard a bunch of stuff while covering the Sabres for the Hockey Writers and just overall being around the team media that team, well, you guys know that they had a team meeting Monday morning instead of practice, addressing the entire situation. Well, things have kind of escalated where I don't know if you guys have heard anything at all, but there's some players. Actually, sorry, it was on the written 32 Toss podcast, so I'm assuming you guys heard it. There's talk around the league that a player in Buffalo told somebody outside of the organization that they are rethinking the alternate captain situation because of what happened. And Matthias Samuelsson, who is the only A on the ice, he watched it with his own two eyes. He didn't do a thing. He didn't step up for his other alternate captain. And I know Tage said that Stefan Noesen apologized and that the players have his back and everything. I think I don't mean to be a homer, but I think it was just the wrong players on the ice. We saw earlier in the season when Peterka got the head hit against the Devils in Prague that Tage Thompson stepped up for him. I think there's guys like Dahlin, Benson, Krebs. But, I mean, outside of that, though, like, there's not a whole lot of guys that are on this team that are willing to go in and go to war for every single player. Like, who cares if you get your ass kicked? Gilbert on the next game against Columbus dropped him 3 seconds in. He fought one of the best fighters in the league in Matthew Oliver, but guess what? He might have gotten his ass kicked, but he sent a message to the team that he'll get his ass kicked for them. So I want your guys' perspective of people that are outside of the organization. Let me know what you guys think.
I got a strong disagree with you there, man.
Okay.
That's definitely
Okay,
a
go.
homer take. I'm sorry. Let me give you a little bit of an outside perspective. All right. So one, I think that it's cowardly to try to go after an alternate captain as the reason why you don't have leadership in your locker room when you have Lindy Ruff, who is a terrible hire. Terrible.
Yeah,
Let's just
I agree
lay it
with
out
that.
like it is. Two, Rasmus Dahlin has showed me nothing this year to prove that he deserved that captaincy. What has he done this year outside of fighting people in practice, not showing any heart on the ice? Like, and I'm not expecting Rasmus Dahlin to fight, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Two, that fight the game after is laughable to me. You don't have to have guys on the ice to go at it, even if it's like a random guy going up knowing he's going to get himself beat up and torn to shreds. Like, that's your best player getting knocked out and you guys are just like skating around. You barely are shoving guys. Like, you don't have to go and fight, but the next shift, put your biggest guy out there, go after whoever you want, fight someone, be like, hey, we have some heart. I don't care. I think this team is the most laughable thing in the organization right now. It's pathetic, and that to me showed that something needs to change in this locker room. Owen Power, Dylan Cousins, somebody's got to go, because you got to send a message to these guys that just because earlier in the season we said that we have the solution in this locker room doesn't mean that you guys can just lollygag around and do nothing for the rest of the season. I think it was completely laughable and completely something needs to change with that organization.
I don't know if I'm gonna be as hard as Jimmy was, but um, no,
I
but
did go kind of all in there.
in all seriousness though, like I agree. Maybe it wasn't the right players on the ice, but at the same time, like the Buffalo Sabres, and again, Zach, no offense to this, but the Buffalo Sabres have been one of the more laughable teams
Mhm.
in the past how many years now, not making the playoffs, having all this talent, not being able to get it through. And yeah, no, Lindy Ruff was an awful hire. I never liked that hire. I didn't think it was going to be great. I don't really think you kind of put that old head mentality into this young team. I agree with Delaney hasn't really showed much in terms of captaincy, but I think at the end of the day, there needs to be change. There needs to be something different. There needs to be an edge pull. A lot of people are saying it might be Alex Tuck that they want to move on from. I don't think that's the
I don't
choice.
think that's the choice though.
And like you're telling me a guy that came from Vegas, he is like, and I will say he's actually helped this team take big steps
For
towards
sure.
more on this Buffalo Sabres roster, but he can't do everything. Like what? You're gonna go sign Jason Zucker for, was it $5 million?
Mhm.
And then it's like the Buffalo Sabres are gonna take a step. No. They still had like 10 million left over in cap space. You're telling me that's gonna be and their defense? Don't even get me started. So maybe I am gonna be as hard as I am as
Yeah,
Jimmy
man.
was.
Dude,
Go
bro,
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
what is up with Adams, man? Why does Adams still have a job? I don't
He's
like calling
he's
people's jobs. What's up with that, man?
he's the longest 10-year GM in the Sabres drought, which is ridiculous.
He's terrible. He's terrible.
He
Like
doesn't
maybe he drafts, but he doesn't compliment his
the
players.
there's stuff that goes around on Buffalo Sabres Twitter that if Kevin Adams was he is the king of, he's able to get into trade talks but not being able to close a deal, and then another team steals that player. We've seen it time and time again with every single big name player. Yeah, the Sabres are in on this guy. Yeah, they're in on Pedersen. Vancouver Canucks trade JT Miller away because instead of just doing Byram and Cousins for Pedersen, Adams is like, we want more than just Pedersen in the trade. The fuck are you talking about? Like, okay, the Sabres, I agree with you guys. They are pathetic and they're laughable. I'm not going to go on an entire rant with here. I thought the route that the Sabres should have did is that, A, Lindy Ruff was a terrible hire. I said it in the podcast group chat with me, Chris, and Preston that I thought Lindy Ruff was not a great hire, and they're like, oh, he's fifth all time in wins. He hasn't fucking won a hockey game in about 20 years at this point. Anyways, but they should have either A, just did all alternates, 3 alternates. You don't need to rotate. I thought Tuck, Dahlin, and Thompson should have had the 3 A's, or you make either Tuck or Thompson the C. Thompson has showed me more leadership than I think any other player outside of maybe Alex Tuck has on this team. And since Tuck has come over from Vegas in the Jack Eichel trade in 2021, he's been one of the best players on this team. He forechecks, he backchecks. He is our best penalty killer, and he can also play on power play too. And that's why I think that if the Sabres were idiotically were to trade him at this deadline, they could get back more than if they end up wanting to trade a Cousins or Byram. Because frankly, Bowen Byram without Dahlin is he's lucky to be a top 4 defenseman right now. So that's just me on it. I think the Sabres,
Yeah, they sucked the life out, man. Though, because Byron was really good in Colorado, and I don't think that a year in Buffalo means that he's a bad defenseman. I think that
He's not.
organization has an internal problem where
Mhm.
they like. I'll give you a perspective. I'm from Boston, so I'm
Yeah.
a big Bruins guy. Boston fans want Don Sweeney gone after 1 year of being mediocre.
Mhm.
How are Buffalo fans not rioting outside of that arena? Like, this guy needs to go. Like, it's crazy to me that Buffalo has been doing this for so long. And like the Tuck conversation, they trade away all of their good locker room leaders. They make them so angry that they want to get out of there like Eichel because they want to do things against their best player. It's to me, it's an internal problem. I don't know who's to blame, but if I'm the president of that organization, I'm cleaning house from the GM down and being like, we're going to find an entire new staff. And if you're one of these players who's not going to get with the new program, then you're out of here too. Because to me, maybe a hot take, the San Jose Sharks and Chicago Blackhawks are in a much better position than the Buffalo Sabres if this is the culture they're going to stick
That
with.
is not a hot take. That is an amazing
That's
take.
I
That is an amazing take. I
The
love that take.
the San Jose Sharks they're building something great over there, and I completely agree with you on that take. By the way, it's just it's pathetic, and I don't know. Maybe that has to happen. The Sabres, I like the fact that you're like just clean house. If they're horrible for the next 3 years, rebuild the right way. Get rid of every bad omen that has been in that organization the past 15 years. And fans have tried to somehow reach Terry Pegula, the owner, to sell the team, and he just
Just
won't
not mention that.
sell it. Yeah,
He won't. And you know what? That's who's to blame.
It
He
is.
had a meeting with I think I'm not tell me I'm wrong if I say something here, but he had a meeting with Kevin Adams and a bunch of like the top office people talking about which way should the Sabres go. This guy does not care about the Buffalo Sabres. Are you kidding me? He also owns a team, if you don't know what they're called, the Buffalo Bills, who have had more progress, even though they've had a really tough time trying to win a Super Bowl and try to get past a couple of teams. He does not care. You think he's like, oh yeah, no, I trust what they're doing. Get out of here. Like, you're telling me that's what's going to go on? No. Like, this team, if he actually wants to make money for this team, because I do think there is stuff like and fans that go on Buffalo that really would like to see success, because there is a fan base. Some people don't think that there is. You got to do something different. It starts at the top. He has to do it. I don't think he's going to do it. I don't think he cares. So we'll see what that happens after this season. But I had to mention that he's the one you got to go after.
It's a great point, man. It's a great point because it really does start from the very top, and it's just not sustainable this way. And I commend you and other Buffalo fans for sticking with this team for so long, because that game, that made me someone who does not watch Buffalo hockey because it's just unwatchable to me. Like, have a pit in my stomach of like, what is this? This is disgusting for the game. Like, it was laughable, and I'll keep using that and cowardly because those are the two terms for that entire situation.
I was watching that game live, and I thought maybe the hit was like clean but dirty. I was on edge because in full speed, you're like, well, Thompson was off balance, he was falling. Noah accidentally ran into him. Then I saw that elbow follow through. I'm like, yeah, maybe it was a little bit dirty, but obviously, like, maybe he was just bracing himself that way and just came off at that, whatever. And then when I saw nobody at all, not even nobody acknowledged the hit. It's not like coming up and saying a few words, whatever. Like, that's better than just standing around. I saw somebody who said they would have rather have the team stand around and go on one knee.
Like Pee Wee hockey, I saw. I was like, dude, that's hilarious.
I mean, and then another example is Zucker scored a goal earlier in the game when they ended up blowing the doors off in New Jersey before they, almost came back like every team does on the team. And Jack Quinn goes engaged with Noessen. And Noessen kind of tapped him on the shoulder, like face to face, and this dude skated away instead of doing anything else.
Yeah, it's a culture thing, man. It's pathetic. And I don't know how. I know you mentioned it earlier. Maybe it's just because you really love the team. I don't know how you didn't watch that next game with Columbus. And when they dropped the gloves, think to yourself, you guys are a joke. That's a joke to me. Like, that has nothing to do with the previous game. And what are you trying to prove here? That doesn't prove you're tough. That just proves that you're upset that the fans reacted poorly. That's all that was.
Yeah, and so we don't carry on too long. I mean, I can go on for like hours about this, but I also find it very cowardly and pathetic that Lindy Ruff told the guys that not to respond after that hit because they got a 5-minute power play. And Lindy Ruff, to quote him, said it's bullshit that people were already right after the game saying shit, and how there was stuff going around that, there's like this softness to the team, like the team's soft, and he goes, bullshit. That's absolutely bullshit. Like, I think you're bullshit for not like they scored a shorthanded goal 30 seconds into the power play anyways. Who the fuck cares? That's just me though.
Yeah, no, agreed.
How about Utah revealing NHL logos for their final three logos with the color scheme and the uniforms and everything? When I first saw those, I legitimately thought somebody just made them up. It was like some fan is like, hey, here's like a nice little custom scheme for you guys. Like, what do you guys think? And then the actual Utah team put them out. I hope those aren't the actual logos. Maybe it was just some blueprint that this is what it can look like. But if those are the logos, yikes. But I do think that either way, the jerseys are going to look absolutely sick. And I might have to cop one at some point. We'll see, though.
Yeah, I'm honestly just more upset about the fact that they can't be the Yeti. I just really love that name. But I really only think the Mammoth is the way to go. They should get a new designer. It's just too blocky, too unoriginal for me. Got to go the route of Seattle, like when they did it, Vegas. Original, cool concepts, fit the NHL. They just don't look like they fit the other jerseys in the league.
Yeah, talk about e-show right now. I mean, these logos, like, and they commented on it. EA Sports always said these look a little bit familiar. Yeah, pretty sure they do. Taken right from the game. These, what I will say is they did say like these weren't the final concepts. You know, they were going to have something different. Personally, I think if you really want to go the safe route, I don't mind Utah HC, and I'll say it because of this. If you have this Utah Yeti logo that they're going to run with anyway, they could probably find, you know, some common ground with the Yeti company. If you don't know, I'm pretty sure they make the coolers and stuff. Like they'll find common ground and like pay them money, whatever, or the Wahoo. But Outlaws is kind of good. Like I don't know. I don't mind it. I like Mammoth. I like Mammoth better, but Outlaws is kind of getting like a bad rep for what's going on here. Mammoth,
I don't know.
if
I'm
you're gonna
not.
go
I'm
with the
not into
logo,
it, man.
Dude,
I'm not into it.
but
I don't know about Outlaws. I wanted Yeti so bad. I'm pissed that it was trademarked by the Yeti company, but I'm sticking with Mammoth. I think Mammoth would be a sick logo. I think it's a sick name. I just overall think that it fits the entire NHL, like Jimmy said. But if they ended up going with Outlaws, I wouldn't be mad either. And I think all three names really are not that bad of an option. If they went with Hockey Club, I think it's safe to say that it feels okay now, like it's nothing crazy. But I don't think they're gonna go with Hockey Club mainly because I think it might be a money standpoint where all these people are buying Hockey Club jerseys now, and then let's say they go with Mammoth or Outlaws next season. Now there's gonna be a lot of fans that are gonna want to get the updated jerseys, and now the organization is making more money, so that could be a standpoint too, where it's like we can go for Hockey Club. We're gonna make you guys think that it's a choice, but I think realistically it might be down to Mammoth and Outlaws. I don't know. Maybe I'm just talking out of my ass, but that's just something that.
Yeah, I still think they're gonna make money from it because, like Zach had mentioned, they're gonna change the logo to Yeti, so they're still gonna put out some new jersey. It's just gonna be more like the PWHL stuff, where they came out with the inaugural jerseys and then picked a name, and it kind of just went like that. So I don't think they could pick a wrong choice here, but I actually am kind of rooting for the Hockey Club to stay. I think it's unique with the Yeti. I think that would be pretty cool.
they got to keep those jerseys though. Like the Utah Cross, if that's like a third jersey,
For sure.
please. I would love that.
They're really clean, really clean.
What do you guys think? Do you think they should stick with the current color concept and not add
Oh,
anything, or what do we think? Like maybe dabbling in some purple or like maroon.
No. The color concept's real nice. I think this is like fresh. The black with the light blue and white. Ooh, so clean, dude.
It's slick, and like I wouldn't mind if you had. I don't know how it would look, but I wouldn't mind if you had like the blue go first and then the black. It might be a little too much, but I like it. It's slick. A lot of people hate on it. Like people, I feel just want to hate on Utah's team for no reason. Like the name, the jerseys. When they first came out, I thought it was beautiful. I said, even though it's like black and blue, like okay, whatever. Even though it's that color scheme, it looked good, and people just wanted to rip on it for no reason. I don't know. I like it. I like the whole thing. I like the new rebrand or whatever they're new. I think they can't miss on any of them, honestly.
For sure.
I'm going to go over to the Eastern Conference playoff race, specifically the Atlantic third spot, because there's three teams, four teams, Ottawa, Detroit, Tampa Bay, and Boston, that can all realistically get the spot. Out of those four teams, which team is most likely to get that spot?
For the third?
Yes, for the third spot in the Atlantic.
I think it's gonna be Ottawa, man. I think it's gonna be, and I think Boston would be a good pick if they didn't have so many games in hand. I think they've had like 3 or 4 more games than every other team in the wild card race. But I just think Ottawa, without Allmark, they've been playing great. If they get Allmark back, I think they're just going to be able to hold on. And if the Rangers can somehow figure it out in the Metro, I think they'll get, but they're not going to get the Atlantic side. Doesn't matter. I just don't see Detroit overtaking Ottawa, and with Boston having games in hand and just looking back and forth without Pastrnak, I just think they're going to hang on.
I mean, I said at the start of the season that Ottawa would be 3. Tampa's been like they've had their number. Like, I mean, what I will give Ottawa is that their goaltending, when they actually get goaltending, they've been good. Their offensive numbers have been good enough where they're sustaining that. Like they're helping out their guy. And usually this is a place where goalies go to die. Like we all know that for Ottawa. It kind of sucks for them, but it's true. We've seen that with Matt Murray. Saw that with Korpisalo. And hopefully when you get a guy like Allmark, who although been hurt, you're probably going to have a easier time. Shout out Marelainen. But I mean, I don't see Detroit making it. I said two Atlantic teams would actually make the wild card. So I mean, Sorry,
Hey,
Columbus.
still could happen, man. Still could happen.
No,
Yeah, I still
I
think
know.
it. Yeah,
Um,
I think it's going to be Boston and New York in the end in the wild card, and then it's either going to be Ottawa in the mix there as the third spot. Detroit's goal differential still bad. Their defense
Mhm.
is still shaky, and their goaltending it's just not. It's so hot and cold, man. I don't know if I trust them to keep it going. I know they've been better with their new head coach in McLellan, but like I don't know, man. I'd like to see it. I think everyone wants Detroit in, but I just don't know if they're going to be able to.
There
I
is a
like it too.
thing. There is a thing with Detroit where they're playing great with McClellan, but I don't like how top heavy their blue line is. Outside of Edmondson and Mo Sider, it's genuinely not that good. Goaltending, I'm not a huge fan of it. That team in general is super top heavy. Their top six, it can produce on a night to night basis. I think Larkin, the Brinkat, is good. Kane, since McClellan has been their head coach, has been good. He got his first point today since January 18th. So because he was hurt for like 6 or 7 games, whatever. But I do think that Ottawa ends up taking that third spot. I think the Lightning and I think probably Boston are going to be the wild card teams.
There you go, Jimmy.
I do think, and the reason that I'm not going with the Rangers is just because they're like so inconsistent. One game they look like the team that was the President's Trophy winners last season. Then the next game they're like, oh, did you guys forget how to play hockey 24 to 48 hours later? And the injury to Shesterkin, I know they have the break coming up, so it doesn't hurt them too bad. But even if, let's say, he misses 2 games out of the break, which I highly doubt, I think it's only like 1 to 2 weeks, so he should be back.
Yeah.
But still, though, like a goalie coming back from injury, and I think he was hurt earlier this season as well, too. So this is his second time being hurt. Could be a little bit of a concern. I'm not 100% sure. I just think the Lightning, having the more consistent goaltending, having the more consistent play out of your top guys is what I think is going to propel them to a wild card spot. And I think Pastrnak is going to single-handedly carry the Bruins to a playoff spot. Whatever it takes, he's going to take them there.
Yeah, I keep forgetting about the Lightning. Like, I could even see the Lightning knocking the Bruins off. If there's one team I'm least confident in my picks, it would be the Bruins. I actually believe in the Rangers more than I do the Bruins, just from a roster makeup standpoint. Boston's they're just so back and forth, man. Like, without Pastrnak, this team is nothing. They just have nothing in their top six. If I have to see Morgan Geekie have a wide open net one more time and miss it, dude, I just think I'm going to stop watching altogether.
I don't know. I mean, the Bruins, and this is a lot coming from a Leafs fan here. So like the Bruins, for me, I always try to keep a fresh perspective on them. That's also realize that Jeremy Swayman is supposed to be Jeremy Swayman. He hasn't been Jeremy Swayman. Like, right? If Jeremy Swayman is playing the guy he's been for the last, well, not really the last, his whole career, then the Boston Bruins are probably looking at a pretty safe third spot, maybe even number 2, even with that whole team of how it's gone. Because if you're getting league average goaltending from him, aside from Korpisalo, who I think's been just whatever kind of this year, you're probably not in an awful spot. Like the Boston Bruins at negative 24 goal differential, and you're looking at the Tampa Bay Lightning at 39, and they're only in the third spot. It's been a pretty competitive wild card in the East, but to say that it's just been Pastrnak, yeah, I mean, like he's been carrying the whole team. But if you have Swayman there too, I mean, this whole team has just been kind of falling apart, and it's crazy because you always think they're going to be there, but
Yeah.
maybe it's happening now. I don't know. Like maybe
I'll
it's the
add,
Bruins year.
man, I think people do overlook this. The Bruins have been without Hampus Lindholm for most of the season, which maybe people don't think that's a big deal, but it's your second best defenseman on your team that you're without. McAvoy's missed some time, and again, your offensive deficiencies are there. So maybe Swayman will start to pick it up now that you have Lindholm and McAvoy being fully healthy potentially after the Four Nations. So maybe that will help them out, and the break will be a big thing. But the problem is Boston needs help offensively. They have nothing to offer anyone. And the only person they're going to be able to potentially move on from is Frederick. And who are you really going to get back in that? I see them trading more for draft capital at that point. So it's just whether or not Boston is like actually going to put a little bit of effort into this team to get into the playoffs, which I just don't see happening based on some comments from like Sweeney lately. it's not looking great. They'll be a wild card 2 team at best. I don't see them. I think you mentioned maybe the second spot. Like they're not getting past the Leafs, man. Like I can even objectively say that they're not.
If Swayman was doing well, I should
Yeah,
say.
yeah,
That
sure,
if Swayman was
yeah,
doing well.
sure.
It was tough because I do think that it's going to be tough for the Bruins just to get in anyways, because even though Columbus is dealing with injuries, I think they still have a good shot. The Islanders are red hot. They're 8-2 in their last 10. And the Bruins are going to have to leapfrog the Red Wings, Senators, and or Lightning just to get in the playoffs. And now you're with a bunch of teams just in the middle of it right now. And I didn't predict the Bruins were going to be first in the Atlantic Division, not understanding that Jeremy Swayman was going to be, to put it bluntly, complete ass. And just this entire team in general. And I think the rest of the season does rely on a little bit on Jeremy Swayman. I really hope he takes the break. He's not on Team USA. So
Yeah,
take the break.
yes.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, he's their
Okay.
third string, I'm
Okay.
guessing.
Okay.
It's him,
Sorry.
Otter, and Hellebuck, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think he should just take this 2 weeks, even though he's on the team, to mental reset. Just find your groove again. Whether I highly doubt he gets in the game, but you never know. And just kind of come back into the second part of the season and just find your game again. And I think part of this, I said this about Vasilevsky last year when he was coming back from injury. Swayman wasn't coming back from injury, but he had the contract dispute and the holdout. It's hard for a goaltender to not have any training camp and come back in and play like his former self was the year prior, where you're an elite goaltender. I thought the contract 8x8.5 was what he should have gotten July 1st, July 2nd, but unfortunately that didn't happen. So I think this year is going to be more of it's not going to be him again next season. It's hard for a goaltender to come back in without a training camp and play good. So I think that if Swayman can just mentally reset with this break, come back in, understand the fundamentals, and realize, listen, just simplify things. The Bruins are in a great spot. Now, if Swayman comes back in and he's like still playing like this, or maybe even worse, then I have lost hope for the Bruins. It's going to suck because I don't like the Bruins play, and frankly, I just don't want them in the playoffs, but I think that they can be in the playoffs, and I trust them a lot more than a team like Columbus or even Detroit right now. And I don't know if I trust them more than Ottawa and Tampa, but again, they will be that third team in the wild card again. Wild card 2, I think, is probably their ceiling at best. I don't see them better than Ottawa or Tampa Bay.
For sure.
Yeah, it's fair.
So I'm going to stick in the Eastern Conference. I want to talk a little bit about the Washington Capitals, who have a 10-point lead over the Florida Panthers, who are second in the Eastern Conference. Who would you guys take in a 7-game series if they played right now? The Washington Capitals or the Florida Panthers?
I think I'm still taking the Panthers. I mean, I think it would be silly to say Capitals when we're just talking about regular season hockey. Yes, they look great. Yes, the team looks better, but the Panthers have 2 years of experience showing us that the roster they have is capable of doing stuff. And I don't even think all of their players are playing their best. Like Verhaeghe's been in a bit of a slump for them. He always wakes up in the playoffs. And I think Florida's doing that thing that we're seeing a lot of championship teams do, where you just kind of take your foot off the gas a little bit, play through the regular season, and then come in and be a great team in the playoffs. And they're always going to be in contention for free agents. So don't even, or not free agents, for trades. So don't sleep on them to go for a guy like Nelson, because people want to play for the Panthers. So yeah, I'm still taking the Panthers. I will say Washington will put up a good fight though. It could go 6 or 7.
I mean, if like, and I will say, it's just like letting the foot off the gas for Florida is first in the Atlantic, right? Like 69 points. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, you look at them, they're the second team. You know, we're having this conversation. They're 10 points away from Washington. Should we be looking at Washington? I mean, if you look at the advanced stats, you know, shout out to NHL Edge, the Panthers look better. But at the same time, you look at this team, you say Washington, their depth has gotten good. They have the pieces to be able to buy in this time, in a seller's one. So you're talking about giving up picks, giving up whatever for Washington to get better in a defense that has revived contracts. The same on the offensive side. Dylan Strome, Ovechkin, even I think Michael's kind of tailed off, but Alexei Protas. Like, this team looks good. Imagine you add to that with, I don't know, whatever they would go for, but I hesitate to say Caps here because of what the Panthers can do. I think if they add a defenseman, which is something they really need, aside from how Bobrovsky's looked and played, I hesitate to say Panthers right away because of how they looked and because if they add, I don't know. Like this team looks just nuts.
Like,
I don't know how to
what
say
would
it.
convince you guys about the Caps? Like, should they be going for like the Noah Dobsons if they become available, or stick with the
Oh,
Brock Nelsons? Like, what can the Capitals do? Because in my eyes, like with the way they've gone to back cups, you got to beat the champs to be the champs in this situation. It's not like you're facing Edmonton, who definitely has their deficiencies, and they just made the Cup Finals. They're very similar to Vegas, where it's like I don't want to play Vegas in a first round matchup, because even if they're bad, they tail off through the regular season. They're dynamite come playoff time. So should they be doing that on their back end? Should they be focusing on offense? Like, what's their move?
Honestly, like Zach, I don't know if you want to tell us first because I've been kind
yeah.
of talking away, but
I'll
you
take
get
it.
it first.
I I don't see a weak. I don't want to say I don't want to see a weakness on their blue line, but I think their blue line is really strong. I do think if anything they should go for probably a winger, whether it's a left or right winger. Listen, I love Alexander Ovechkin. If he played 82 games, he'd be on pace for 55 goals, which is impressive. But I just don't see if the Capitals played the Panthers in a 7-game series right now. I don't see Alexander Ovechkin averaging close to a goal a game, well, like at 7/10 of a goal a game. If they play, let's say it went the distance and went 7 games, Ovechkin would probably score 3 goals, 4 goals, I think. 4 goals at best. And that's not me dissing Alexander Ovechkin. That's just me more complimenting the shutdown defense that the Panthers have. Whether it's on the blue line, they have some of the best two-way forwards in the game. Shout out Alexander Barkov, who should be he is a Selke nominee every year. So I think that's more telling of the Panthers, and Ovechkin can get away with it against some weaker teams, like in the first round, maybe in the second round, depending on who you match up with. But I do think that they should add up front. Even though they're second or third in the league in goals, I think that you can still always add offense, because when you go up against a team like the Florida Panthers, you need a guy that can go in and be like, I'm going to put this puck in the net whenever I want to. Nobody's going to fucking stop me. And I think the Capitals lack that guy. And I think the X factor in this series would be either what I just mentioned or goaltending. Logan Thompson has been absolutely fantastic. If it wasn't for Connor Hellebuck, Logan Thompson would be my Vezina favorite at the moment. He's playing just as good as Connor Hellebuck. So if Thompson continues this going into the playoffs, through the playoffs, it's hard to see a team that can beat the Washington Capitals. I am still going to lead Florida Panthers in 6 games as of right now, but that could all change depending on what happens at the deadline come in 1 month from now, when the day after the deadline. If the Capitals go out and get a Brock Nelson, if they go out and get, I don't know, somehow end up getting Elias Pettersson, hypothetically. I don't think that's going to happen, but shit happens. You never know. They go out and make one of those moves. Shit. Maybe I'll take them instead.
Yeah, Elias Pettersson maybe would do it for me, but like you just said, they don't have anyone who could put it in the back of the net. Is Brock Nelson really the needle mover for you guys
No.
to take the
No,
Caps over the
no,
Panthers?
he's not.
So like,
No.
and
No.
I don't think there's anyone else out there. Like, unfortunately, all of the big trades have already happened because of the Four Nations tournament. So I just don't think there's really anything out there offensively that they could do, which is why Noah Dobson is such a big piece here, because we're talking about a guy who was 70 points last year, who's offensively driven and adds another layer to your entire system. And they might not need it because they're more of a shutdown defensive team, but that might be your best offensive player to grab, and then you might be able to offer him an extension in the offseason with him being an RFA. But you're going to have to give up something pretty good because of that RFA status, which might mess things up. So I think they're kind of just in a situation where it's like, do they keep playing up to this potential they have all regular season, or are they going to fall back to the Caps of last year where Alex Ovechkin was held pointless for a 4-game series against the Rangers? We'll just have to see.
Yeah, I mean, when I look, I agree with Zach. I say, like, I don't think you need to go in and get a guy like Dobson. Like, if you have a guy like, this is what it looks like right now, but if you have a guy like Matt Waugh in your third pair, I think you're just living the dream.
Sure.
Like, this is a guy like I think a lot of people should went after. And although he's had kind of his ups and downs this season, he's a shutdown guy. He's going to put in those minutes. You have Chikrin and Carlson playing on your top pair. Sandin, Van Riemsdyk has been good. So if you really wanted to add Carson Soucy to your third pair and then take out Trevor and Riemsdyk, sure. But I don't think you should do that. if you really want to make a move, maybe you go and get a guy for your wing like Ricard Raquel. I don't know if I really trust Ethan Frank when it goes to like playoff time, considering that you have Sonny Milano, Backstrom, and Oshie are not going to come back. Well, maybe Milano, but I would still.
Yeah, I was gonna say
This is a
maybe
team-
the Oshie stuff. Is any of those guys gonna end up coming back? Like,
Oh.
are we talking about maybe an LTIR play here, or is it just completely out of the picture?
It doesn't sound like it to me. At least I haven't heard anything with Oshie. Backstrom just seems like he's just there to get his paycheck at this point because he can't.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. Like, I don't think you add. I don't know.
It's a tough situation, man. This is
tough.
an unexpected. It's an unexpected season for this team where it's like you didn't really have a lot to work with. Expectations were low, and to say you're now on the level of the Panthers after one hot run is kind of it's a tough call to make. If even you're a Capitals fan, I don't think that you're seriously taking the Caps over the Panthers in a Game 7 series. Let's say they meet Eastern Conference Finals type of situation. Like I don't know, man. Yeah, it would be
That'd be
nuts,
cool.
man. It would be nuts, but I can't say no to the Panthers because they really didn't lose all that much to make me not believe in them even in the offseason. So I still got to take them.
If there's one thing that you can do if you're the Capitals, you have to somehow find a way to do a 1-for-2 deal. Take one of your guys, whether I don't even know who they do a 1-for-2 deal. They trade one player and then get two back to improve the roster. Because you can always throw in Andrew Mangiapane, but he's been okay for you guys. He's going to be a UFA at the end of the season. You're not trading PLD's 8.5. He's also been, honestly, I think, some of the best hockey he's played in his entire career in Washington. So outside of that, though, you don't have a ton of value to trade for on the front end. In the back end, it's just so deep, I think. Like, you can, like Zach said, possibly upgrade from TVR, but it's not a necessity. So, like, you're not going to trade anybody on your blue line because they've played some of the best defense in front of Logan Thompson out of any team in the entire league. So, I think you are in a tough spot in the Capitals. This is a spot where if you're the Capitals, you already spent a ton of money in the offseason acquiring new guys. Screw it. Just go all out. If it blows up in your face, it blows up in your face. But I wouldn't take this roster into the playoffs and expect to win a Stanley Cup at that point, like you brought up, Jimmy. And I do trust the Panthers a lot more than the Capitals. So I think if you're the Capitals GM, go out, make moves, try to acquire a big fish. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. So what? You have the greatest goal scorer of all time on your team. Go out with the bang. And if you have to tear it all down in a year and a half, 2 years, and this whole entire thing failed, fuck it. We ball, I guess.
Yeah, and I know we're gonna move on from this, but maybe even like an edge play is here for Washington, where you go if Boston's like kind of out of the mix. I know they're shopping like Trent Frederick, maybe a guy like that. Yeah, maybe a guy like that. I'm thinking about it like maybe they could just use some edge because the Panthers are an edgy team, so you got to have some size on with your forwards too, because you don't want to go up against Sam Bennett with everyone and have him just bully you. So maybe a Trent Frederick kind of rental where you're like, we don't got to give up too much. We just send back like a pick or two to Boston, like maybe a second even, get that back, and you should be all right. So that might be the play for Washington.
Going over to the Western Conference, I have been in deep with the Central Division race pretty much all season. Jimmy, as you know, I feel like I'm a Minnesota Wild homer at this point. I picked Kaprizov for the Hart. I know your Kaprizov Hart agenda ended up dying after he ended up getting surgery. And now the Colorado Avalanche are tied with the Wild at 68 points. Granted, you have the Wild with 2 games in hand at 55 games played compared to the Avalanche 57. But Martin Necas and Jack Drury look absolutely phenomenal. And I think that trade was a smart play by the Colorado Avalanche. And I know I said the Carolina Hurricanes won the trade initially. And right now, I know Rantanen's hurt tonight and he's not going to play. Right now, I know it's short. It looks like Necas is that guy in Colorado playing alongside McKinnon and McCarr and the rest of the crew. And right now, the Minnesota Wild are in danger, especially without Kaprizov, where they're going to miss until probably March 1st, maybe even closer to the deadline. They could fall down into that wild card 1 spot. And now you're probably stuck playing either Edmonton or Vegas in the first round. Now, granted, Minnesota going into the playoffs, let's say they finish third, you still have to play Dallas. Like, that's still a tough matchup. So either way, I think Minnesota is one of those teams. It feels like the Capitals, but of the Western Conference, where you're kind of in no man's land right now, where I don't think they have the roster to go out and win a Stanley Cup. But I think they should at least try to address some needs at the deadline, whether it's some more scoring help while Kaprizov is out, or whether it's some blue line help. Although I do think their blue line has been great. I think their goaltending has been great. Gustafson's been phenomenal all season. So I think the Wild are in a tricky spot, but I do think that them, Dallas, and Colorado, those three racing for that second and third spot in the Central, it's going to be electric all season.
Yeah, like definitely have come out to be more of a Minnesota fan over like the past 2 years. When it comes to the Kaprizov thing, I actually think this is like the worst case situation for Minnesota because you have no cap space to go out and get anyone, and Kaprizov's going to be out just long enough, but just short enough that you can't make an LTIR play. So if you're kind of a Minnesota fan, you shouldn't be upset even if they do fall in the standings. Like if they get into the playoffs, cool, but this isn't the year for you guys anyways. Like you'll have cap space next year if you can sign Kaprizov and then bring in someone else to help him out. That's going to be the year for Minnesota to really take off. I think just getting into the playoffs would be fun for them just because they are a really good team, but there's nothing they can do this year. The cap is just completely messing with this team, and Kaprizov being out, it's like your best player and you can't fill that void. So also with the Hartman suspension too, it's just a big blow to them as well. Just some bad stuff going on for Minnesota, and I expect Colorado to overtake them. And then just quickly on the Necas thing, I don't know if I talked to you about it on a podcast, but I was always in favor of Colorado winning that trade. And it wasn't even because I think Rantanen's a bad player. It's just Necas was so good in Carolina, and people just, it's more of like a we don't watch Carolina hockey, so we don't know who this guy is kind of situation. But this guy was like a top scorer to start the year and has been consistent all year. So I think that was a great play for Colorado. They now have more room to work with, and I expect them to maybe make a move or two again to be more competitive this year.
Yeah, and I agree with some of that. I still think at the end of the day, if Carolina signs him and he gets better, I mean, he hasn't been great. Like we look at Necas, 8 games, 4 goals, 9 points, 2 game winners. The guy's been an absolute bully in Colorado. Granted, he's been playing with McKinnon, but if you're still putting up those numbers, it's not like you're some snub coming in the lineup. You still have to know how to score.
Sure.
So I mean, for Martin Necas, the one thing is that he's been able to push his way into this lineup. Mikko Rantanen's hurt. He hasn't really been able to produce. Granted, again, Carolina hasn't been that great. And then even just to say something about the Minnesota Wild, you hit it right on the nose. Like this is a team that it's not their year. They have tons and tons of good prospects coming up and more to come. It's crazy how this team has been built, and with the cap space coming in, with contracts coming off. If you didn't know, Zach Parise, Ryan Suter, those are, I believe, those coming off next year, right?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. So that's going to open up cap space on top of more cap space that is coming with the cap rising. So, I mean, shout out Marco Rossi, who's been good. He's been nice down the middle. He's been a good surprise. Gustafson's been pretty disappointing to start this new year. I think he has like 100 save percentage. He's just been very inconsistent. But man, like Minnesota, if they make it, I really like them. I think they're a very fun team at the end of the day. But are they like my cup pick? Are they my second round team? No, not really. With what they've looked like.
The prospects you mentioned too, man. Zeev Buium's going to be a stud with them, and that's a huge steal for them from the draft. And then Rantanen, I think when people talk about Necas and Rantanen, when you mentioned the him playing with McKinnon and excelling, I think one thing you could say about Necas over Rantanen is, well, Rantanen was more of a McKinnon merchant than Necas is because Necas proved he could play in both situations and thrive. So until I see it from Rantanen and I see the upside, I just think right now Colorado won the trade, and I don't see Rantanen re-signing in Carolina. So I think that this is worst case scenario for them. So
Carolina just lost 2 players. A top goal scorer in the league, point scorer, and then B, a second to third line center that you can rely on night in and night out. And he wouldn't put up fantastic numbers, but Jack Drury did his job, and he's doing his job in Colorado. And Nate's just, I don't know if I'm being over dramatic here or hiring expectations, but Martin Necas with the full season in Colorado next season, call me crazy, he'll put up 100 points. If he plays like this now that he does next season, 100-point player. That's just me, though. Maybe I'm overreacting. I don't know.
No, man, it's $6 million. $6 million. That's
It's
all
a
he's going to be
steal.
next year. It's a weird situation for Carolina where it's like I'm not too sure why you would go at this back to back. Like I'm not trying to even roast Carolina too much. Like we're talking about Mikko Rantanen. Like
Hmm.
this is a player that's gonna be great for you this year. But I think they would have been better off with some of the rumors about Elias Pettersson going there. They should have really just went full in on that. Like the term with Pettersson, the age, and just the fit to me feels a little bit better than Rantanen. We're talking about a small market that has a hard time signing players. And if you couldn't get Jake Gensel to sign, all of the teams in the league are going to be throwing the bag at Rantanen in the offseason. Like, I just don't see it happening. So now you're a little bit worse off with depth. You obviously got Taylor Hall, so it kind of makes up for the Drury thing. But at the same time, man, I don't know about you guys. It didn't push Carolina any further for me. They still feel like a team that's on the outside looking in as like somewhat of a contender, but not like a legit one.
Yeah. I mean, like I like them. I like the pieces that they have, like some of the pieces. But I mean, when you look at their defense, it's good. When you look at their offense, it's good. Is it elite? No. Like, is it a team that you'd say, yeah, this is like the Vegas Golden Knights 2023, or is this the Florida Panthers 2024? Or is this Tampa Bay Lightning back? No, it's not. Their depth is kind of there. You still need a center. You still have that Kotkaniemi contract, which is awful.
Brutal.
And do I really believe in Kochetkov? Do I think Frederick Anderson is going to be fully healthy and can play? I love him. I love Freddie from his time in Toronto. I love the man, but he's not exactly Mr. Not Band-Aid. So, I look at Carolina and I say, it's a fun team, same as Minnesota, even though I like Carolina a bit better. It's a fun team. I would really love to see success with this team, but I don't know what it's going to look like. They seem like they just get right close and then they stop, and then it's nothing again. It's disappointing.
Yeah.
You know what the Hurricanes remind me of? I'm going to make this analogy because I'm a huge Bills fan. The Carolina Hurricanes are the Buffalo Bills of the NHL. Without that superstar, though, I love Sebastian Aho. I love him to death, one of the best two-way centers in the league. I just don't think that he's a superstar player. I think he's very good to elite. I don't think this is why the Hurricanes went out to go get Rantanen, because when they face a goalie like Bobrovsky or Shesterkin in the playoffs, I mean, at this point, you can throw in Logan Thompson. Like, when they face an elite goaltender, you need to have that one guy that I mentioned it earlier in the episode. You have to just go get a goal. If you need a goal, go get it. McKinnon, McDavid does it. Even we saw Matthews at part of the Bruins series last year. The Leafs needed a goal. He went out and got them a goal. And the Hurricanes just haven't had that. And we saw them be the better team in the second round against the Rangers last year, but they couldn't score a goal at all. They couldn't get past Shesterkin. And Rantanen right now struggling with Carolina. Maybe, who knows, maybe this injury, I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe this injury has been lingering since he got to Carolina, and he just hasn't been him because of that. Okay, that's fine. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But if he comes back from this injury and he's still playing like this, I think he's as good as gone in Carolina. I agree with you, Jimmy. I don't think he comes back no matter what, even if they win the Stanley Cup. And I think the only way Carolina wins this trade is if they end up winning the Stanley Cup. I think even if you make it to the finals somehow and you lose, I think you still lose the trade because you just don't have any players from the trade anymore. So I
Yeah.
think you can, I guess, look at it as like a lose-lose situation for Carolina at this point.
Yeah, I just got 3 quick points for you. One, I think if
Mhm.
they do win a Stanley Cup, he does resign. I think I made a video about this. It's literally cup or bust for this team
Mhm.
because we're talking about your future now. And it's not bust like, oh no, you're back to the bottom of the league. It's just like for Rantanen to stay, it's got to be either cup finals or win the cup because you got to show that you guys have a winning culture and that it works here. 2, I need more Seth Jarvis on their top line. I don't know why this guy's playing third line minutes. He's a beauty, and I think he's going to be special for them, but they got to give him some more significant minutes. And then last thing is I wonder if Colorado knew about this injury kind of being a thing and felt like it was going to impact them towards the run that they're having. And maybe that's why they were a little bit more comfortable moving off of him for Necas. I wonder if that was in play for them, but just a thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good thought. And to add something before we end up leaving things off is that the Avalanche GM, I'm sorry, I don't know his name if you guys know it, sick. The Avalanche GM said that they're not deep enough. And in order to get deep enough, you need cap space. And in order to get cap space, you need to get off a guy that's going to get $13 to $14 million. And now this also leaves them room to go make more moves at the deadline to improve their roster as a whole. So they were the deepest team in the league when they won the cup in 2022. They lost some of the depth. Now they have to regain it again. I think trading Rantanen was the right move. It was honestly probably the only move, even if they were able to re-sign him. Now you're so top heavy. Now I get the caps going up. It's going to be at $113 million by 2028. But again, Cale Makar is going to be getting probably north of $15 million, $16 million. So I think it's an entire situation with Colorado.
Yeah, man. Landy. Gotta wait for Landy.
Yeah.
That's a huge play for him. Landy's
Yes.
a huge thing. Huge.
Yes, he is. Again, guys, thank you guys for joining. I appreciate it as always. Unfortunately, Preston wasn't able to join us, but let the audience know where they can find you guys.
Yeah, you can go ahead, Zach. You can go first.
Oh, yeah. You can find me on ZS Hockey, so Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, hopefully some YouTube soon, actually. I'd really like to get that started. But just those 3 platforms. Give me a shout. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Get that YouTube started. We got to see more, man. And let me let you guys know it's Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Jimmy Hockey, doing a lot of stuff. So if you guys want to follow along with that, go for it. It's a lot of fun over there.